Hi, welcome to Avast's monthly broadcast. I am your host Natalia, and today we'll be covering a range of topics. Our main topic today is IEN numbers and why it's so important to have one when shipping goods. We will also be covering IOSS in Northern Ireland, what the changes have been and how this affects you. We've got our specialist from EPR coming in to briefly describe what the updates are and what the changes in the registrations have been. Next up, we'll have responsible person changes. A lot is happening on the 1st of April, so make sure you listen up and are prepared for these changes as well. And finally, I'll be covering some tips on how to take advantage of festivities and expand your global sales even more. If at any point during the broadcast you do have any questions, just pop them on the comments and one of our specialists will be in contact to answer your specific question.
Hello everyone and welcome to today's broadcast. My name is Khaled and I am joined today by my colleague Toby, who oversees the customs procedure here at Avast. Toby, thanks for joining me today.
No worries, thanks Khaled.
Today we'll be talking about a recent change that has occurred for the Amazon sellers, and this is the request for an IEN number. Toby, start by telling us, what is this IEN number?
So the IEN is the import entry number. This is a unique number which is shown on import documentation. You would tend to receive import documentation whenever your goods cross a customs border. So for example, if you sent goods from the USA to the UK, you would receive an export entry in the USA, and you'd also receive an import entry which would allow your goods to arrive in the UK and move from the port to the final destination. Going back to the IEN, this would be a unique reference to your import entry. So in the example of from a USA to UK shipment, you would have an IEN on the UK import.
So who are those sellers receiving those documents from?
So the seller would receive the import entry document or the import documentation from their customs broker or sometimes their freight forwarder. So if you're using couriers such as UPS, FedEx, DHL, they would often provide you an import entry, and on that you would have the import entry number.
Would you also be able to tell us why is Amazon requesting it? Because this is a new change and it wasn't needed before. Why now?
Yeah, so Amazon and other marketplaces have sometimes had the option to input the IEN, but what we're seeing is a more stricter need to input this data into the marketplaces. It's for compliance. The marketplaces we're seeing, as with other compliance regulations such as EPR, the marketplace having more responsibility to ensure that goods sold on their platform are compliant.
So we just need to make sure that all the sellers would be impacted by this at some point. And as you mentioned earlier, not only Amazon, but other platforms are also requesting it. You mentioned that the seller can obtain it by looking in their import documents. Why is it requested straight away when a shipment gets booked on Amazon or on other platforms?
Yeah, I think this is a case of we've definitely seen an increase in urgency from marketplaces to provide this as soon as possible. So where there was sometimes a bit of a lax request for this, we are seeing as soon as the goods are received at Amazon or other marketplaces, at that time the import entry number should be available to the seller. So we're seeing that really as soon as possible after goods are being received, that's where that import entry number can be input into the system.
How can the sellers assure that this is obtained in the future? Is it just a matter of tracking the import documents and maintaining an open communication with the freight forwarder?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And not just with the import entry number, but make sure you're using a customs broker and a freight forwarder who are providing you what's needed, whether that's up-to-date tracking or whether that's the information that you need at any time of day. But make sure that you are using one who is providing the import entry numbers to you. And if you don't, then there is going to be an issue if you can't be putting these import entry numbers onto the marketplace.
So again, another important thing to note, as Toby mentioned, make sure your freight forwarder knows the rules of the territory where they help you inbound your products to. Make sure they're aware of the VAT implication, the tax implication, and also newly in the UK, this IEN number. We've seen a couple of sellers who were struggling to obtain this when they work with fast parcel operators. Is that the case?
Yeah, I think with fast parcel operators, so when we're sending parcels and smaller consignments, we do see that it can be quite tricky sometimes to find the customer service or the relevant department provide the information required. So IEN is probably not a terminology that these fast parcel operators are using on a day-to-day basis. So what you should be requesting is the import paperwork. On the import paperwork, that's where you would find the IEN. When shipments move between a customs border, there are two types of customs entries you tend to get. You tend to get the export entry and the import entry. And although these look very similar, it needs to be the import entry that you request from your courier or fast parcel operator.
Take an example, an EU-based seller who is moving stock to the UK. Who is responsible for creating the import documents for them? Is it the freight forwarder or is it the agent that they're using for the customs clearance purposes?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's not to give sort of a straight answer, but there's multiple options there, Khaled. So if you are using a fast parcel operator, so we're talking, DHL, UPS, FedEx, or other similar companies, they tend to handle door-to-door shipment for you, and that means that they would handle the transport, the export entry, and the import entry. So if you were missing any of the documentation as they're handling door-to-door transport, they would be able to assist that for you. There are some other alternatives. You can appoint your own customs broker, so you could reach out to an independent customs broker in the UK, and then you could get a transport agent to do part of the transport, but you would have your own customs broker all the time producing your import entries. In that case, it would be your customs broker where you would get the import paperwork listing the IEN rather than the transport agent.
Thank you. And the difference between those two is based on the volumes that the seller is sending, or where are they based? How can they know when to appoint their own and when to use the delivery company?
There may be instances where it's a better option to appoint a customs broker if you've got really specialist products, or if you've been having difficulties with regards to the import entries or the accuracy. A dedicated customs broker can assist you in ensuring that you've built a relationship with them and they know your products, etc., to ensure that you've got compliant import entries every time. I mean, the reason for this change is not just because Amazon wants to collect this data. The reason for this is the compliance reasons, and we are seeing that HMRC and other government authorities are needing to ensure that goods are compliantly imported and being sold on the marketplaces. There may be that there are couriers or transport agents who are maybe shipping goods and not compliantly importing. So I think it's really clear and a big message to sellers to make sure that you are compliantly moving your goods, especially through customs borders, and ensure that your customs broker and freight forwarder does provide you the correct import documentation.
Perfect. One more thing to note: if you were to look for this EIN number after you watch this broadcast, again, open up one of your import documents sent by your freight forwarders or request it just in case you don't have it. It's really important for you to have this at hand at all time because the import documents are used for filing purposes. And if you were to look for the number, it should be on the first page on the top right, and it's a number which is included of 18 digits. With all this being said, thanks for joining us today. And just to sum up on what we discussed, keep a very close relationship to your freight forwarders or your customs broker. Make sure you keep safe those import documents and use them for filing and to find your EIN number. And make sure your EIN number is always inputted into the platform you are using to make imports to. Up next, stay tuned for some industry updates from the world of e-commerce.
IOSS stands for Import One Stop Shop. IOSS allows businesses to register, file and pay their VAT on distant sales made from outside of the European Union into the EU. It eliminates the requirement to register for VAT in every arrival country of where the goods are sold.
Previously, IOSS registrations were only available in EU member states. However, from March 1st, 2024, Northern Ireland also offered these locally. Whilst not a member of the European Union, Northern Ireland does take advantage of the EU single market by virtue of the Good Friday Agreement, and also the Great British market by virtue of being one of the 4 countries constituting the United Kingdom. Currently, these registrations are only being offered to companies incorporated in Northern Ireland and Norway, as there is an agreement between the two. However, we expect to see that this may be extended to other British and worldwide companies moving forward. The future of extended producer responsibility in Europe is a crucial aspect of the continent's sustainability agenda, urging businesses to adopt innovative and eco-friendly practices that benefit both the environment and the future of selling. With EU recycling targets set to nearly double by 2025, taking a step towards ensuring packaging is recyclable and incorporating recycled content will be crucial to avoiding escalating fees and penalties. Measures such as reducing packaging weight, thickness and dimensions whilst ensuring product protection without excess packaging automatically leads to reduced environmental impact and cost throughout the packaging lifecycle. Countries like France and Spain have emerged as leading examples of how a system called eco-modulation can incentivize businesses to adopt environmentally friendly product design and packaging practices. Eco-modulation aims to offer financial advantages for products with eco-friendly attributes and has already encouraged the increased use of innovative packaging solutions. As part of certain EPR registration processes, companies are now required to develop prevention and eco-design plans, outlining strategies to reduce the environmental impact of their goods. The plans serve as sustainability roadmaps and are typically requested to be revised every 5 years, allowing companies to assess progress, set new objectives, and implement targeted actions to improve sustainability and meet regulatory requirements. By prioritizing eco-design and recyclability strategies, businesses can not only mitigate environmental impacts, but also enhance brand reputation, reduce costs, and contribute positively to a more sustainable future for generations to come.
Non-EU sellers must appoint a UK and/or EU responsible person and adhere to the product and label compliance requirements in these markets. A UK and/or EU responsible person is a person or a company with a registered address in the relevant market, which will be jointly responsible for the product and label compliance of the products sold on the marketplaces. Both the EU and the UK have their own product and compliance requirements, which include clear product identification, safety warnings, ingredients lists, and instructions for use. For product compliance, the categories range from consumables, cosmetics, electronics, and toys, to name a few, and they may require specific registrations to comply with all the relevant regulations. The responsible person will additionally need to ensure that the product information can be easily made accessible upon request to the relevant authority. With all this in mind, deadline to appoint a new responsible person for non-EU sellers is the 31st of March. So if you haven't reviewed these regulations yet, please get in touch and we'll be happy to assist.
My top tip today would be using the festivities around the world in your advantage. Let's take Mother's Day as an example. It's actually in May in the US and Australia, but in March in the UK. So if you sell a product that's catered to mothers, you could use your marketing and your sales techniques around the world at different points in the year to make sure that you use the entire year to globalize and make sales. With this in mind, make sure that you localize your listings and you're using keywords and terminology used in that specific country. For example, mum might be written M-O-M or M-U-M. So make sure that you use that in your listings to capture those target audiences and make the most out of your sales. Thank you for listening to this month's broadcast. Hopefully some of the topics were relevant to you and you have taken some piece of information over and can use it towards your e-commerce business. If you still do have any questions though, please feel free to reach out to Avask and one of our specialists will be in contact just to look at your situation in more detail and give you some advice. We will be doing this monthly broadcast every month, so if you liked it and enjoy it, join us in the next month. And if you're new to this, hopefully see you in the next one.